The President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, has urged pharma company AstraZeneca to stick by its commitments to supply the EU with its COVID-19 vaccine. Her comments come after the British-Swedish firm said it was cutting the number of doses for the EU by 60% because of production problems. The drug maker also said it was not contractually obliged to deliver, but von der Leyen said the contract is, quote, crystal clear. In response, the EU is taking steps to allow it to prevent the export of vaccines from the EU if need be. The controversy comes as the bloc faces pressure, with many countries failing to meet their vaccination targets. Well, our correspondent Georg Mattes in Brussels knows more about all this. Georg, there's a new offer on the table from AstraZeneca. What can you tell us?
Exactly, Gerhard. There are reports, unconfirmed reports, I have to say, that an extra offer of some 8 million vaccine doses has come in from AstraZeneca. There's also reports about some other concessions that have been made by the pharmaceutical giant. Frankly, if you look at the numbers and the 60% cut that AstraZeneca has announced, it will still take us to only half the doses that were promised. And there's a number of pressing questions. You know, where have the doses gone that the EU has pre-financed? And why actually is this cut affecting Europe and not other countries like the UK? Those questions are still unanswered.
So you mentioned the UK, and they get the doses that they pre-ordered. That's part of the dispute, isn't it?
Absolutely, that's part of the dispute. And the CEO of AstraZeneca has explained that the reason for that is that the deal with the UK has been done earlier, that in that contract with the UK, it's foreseen that the two factories in the UK only cater to the UK and not to the EU. But the EU reasoning is that no such hierarchy of company sites, no hierarchy or no priority of deployment of vaccines is foreseen in the contract they have been given. And also the point that the CEO of AstraZeneca made about best practice doesn't count for the EU. For the EU, that's a lame excuse. They say there is a clear commitment, and that is why they hope the company will publish this particular contract today for everyone to see that the promises that have been made to the EU are unfulfilled.
So did the EU not know that the UK would have a priority? And was there a lack of due diligence on the EU's part, or should Astra have told them?
From the perspective of the EU, there is a lack of information. The key issue for them is that if you cut the vaccine supply that was promised by contract by more than half, by 60%, you need to come up with some really good reasons for that. And those reasons haven't been given. Apparently, there is a problem in the supply chain on the European side in a factory in Belgium. But from the perspective of the EU, AstraZeneca is a global company. They're producing as far away as India. And if they have supply problems, that burden needs to be shared by all the countries that they are handing out their vaccines to, and it can't be that the biggest customer, which is the EU, only carries the burden.
Well, new measures are now being introduced, or at least being discussed today, that could see an export ban of doses from the EU. Is that a tit-for-tat move?
Well, first of all, that would be the most radical step, if you want. What the EU is currently doing is basically flexing their muscles to show AstraZeneca that they do mean business when it comes that they're not taken for fools, if you want. We'll still have to see to whether it will lead actually to an export ban. And for the moment, officials here rule that out. What they want is not vaccine nationalism, as some in the UK have put it, but what they want is fair treatment and to monitor whether the treatment is fair and according to the contract. That is why they will introduce this transparency mechanism today, where the EU can monitor to what extent vaccines that are being produced on European soil are leaving the EU.
Georg Mattes there in Brussels. Thank you, Georg. Germany's Health Minister Jens Spahn has welcomed the AstraZeneca offer of a further 8 million vaccine doses to the EU. But speaking this morning, he also underlined that the European Union has paid for and is entitled to the originally promised 80 million doses.
The European Union member states have invested jointly in the pre-production of these vaccines. So they also have a right to profit from that. But this is not about Europe first. It's about a fair allocation for the European Union.
German Health Minister Jens Spahn speaking there. Now, DW's chief political correspondent Melinda Crane is in Berlin. Melinda, we heard the German Health Minister there. What else did he say?
Well, he just spoke to a press conference and said that he knows that Germany's rollout of the vaccine has been problematic and he understands people's impatience, but the fact is that difficult weeks still do lie ahead. He also mentioned the vaccine summit that the government will be holding on Monday, saying that that would be looking to improve coordination on the vaccine between the federal states and the federal government here in Berlin. He said, nonetheless, progress is being made, especially in the vaccination of vulnerable groups, and that the government still hopes to reach its target of offering the vaccine to all people in care facilities, elderly care facilities, by the middle of February. And finally, he said that as of March, he expects the situation will ease, not only because of the AstraZeneca vaccine then becoming available, but also 2 further vaccines that are in the pipeline, so that he still believes Germany can meet its goal of offering vaccines to all who want them by the end of the summer.
So vaccination being one side of the story, containment is another. Where Germany is planning to close the borders now for some countries. Tell us more about that.
That's correct. Germany's interior minister said yesterday that as soon as today, the government may announce a plan to essentially shut down travel from 5 countries where the new mutations are known to be prevalent. So that would be Brazil, Britain, Ireland, Portugal, and South Africa. There had been talk earlier this week of possibly shutting off air travel altogether. That is not the case. It would be limited to these 5 countries. And apparently there would be exceptions for German citizens returning from those places, as well as for people who work in the freight industry.
That was DW's chief political correspondent Melinda Crane reporting. Results from large-scale trials in the UK suggest another new vaccine could soon be available. US pharmaceutical company Novavax has said its coronavirus vaccine, given in 2 doses, is almost 90% effective. The firm has applied for regulatory approval in the UK.
Novavax scientists began working on a COVID-19 cure 1 year ago. Rapid progress meant it wasn't long before human trials were underway. Now, efficacy tests have shown their hard work has paid off, with a vaccine that is 89% effective, even against the new UK variant of the virus.
I think the other bit of news that comes through is that there are slightly different levels of efficacy against the different strains, the variants you've been hearing about. That's not surprising, but it is just a little message that we are going to see some degree of variation of protection against these variants.
A separate trial in South Africa showed the inoculation had just under 50% efficacy against the new variant that is rampant there. Novavax says it's already working on a booster to try and improve that. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson welcomed the headline news and said the UK had ordered 60 million doses. The European Union has ordered 200 million. It's the 4th vaccine to seek approval from Western regulators, though doses are not expected to be ready until later this year.
Good time to have a look at some other developments in the coronavirus pandemic. The makers of Russia's Sputnik V vaccine have said they can provide 100 million doses to the EU. Hungary is the only country in the bloc to have approved the Russian jab. Mexico has surpassed India as the country with the 3rd highest COVID-19 death toll. Over 155,000 have died there. And the United Nations has called 2020 the worst year in tourism history, with global losses of more than €1 trillion. United Nations Secretary-General is calling the distribution of COVID-19 vaccines a, quote, global emergency. Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said more than 70 million doses have been administered worldwide, but fewer than 20,000 vaccinations were on the African continent. He warned that while every country has the duty to protect its own people, no country can afford to neglect the rest of the world.
This is a global crisis.
Science is succeeding, but solidarity is failing.
It's about fair distribution, not only about money. Fair access to coronavirus vaccines around the globe. That's what the European Union promised the world, even before the first vaccine was approved. The EU has invested heavily in research and development, and member states have put millions into helping poor nations acquire vaccines in the future. But as the world scrambles to produce and distribute enough jabs, in the end it seems Europe does come first. If you can't help, that's fine. Rwanda's former health minister, Agnes Biwangwawo, tells me. But then don't cast yourself as a savior.
Be frank and say, my people first. Don't lie to me and say, we will be equal. So because we start to prepare, in Rwanda we are prepared. But we just see that your word, we cannot count on it. And that's not good.
While the coronavirus continues to spread rapidly in Africa, only a few countries there have begun immunizing their citizens. Egypt ordered vaccines from China, for example, and Guinea is rolling out a Russian vaccine. These two world powers were quicker off the mark than the EU.
They are practicing vaccine diplomacy to meet their foreign policy objectives. But in the meantime, we need to look at the outcomes, right? If it helps, right, mitigate, the access gap between poor and rich nations, why not?
Even Europe's closest neighbors in the Western Balkans have yet to see the bloc deliver on pledges to help. Here too, Chinese and Russian vaccines are filling the void.
The European Union have said they wanted it to be a global public good. They wanted to ensure equitable access. But we're just seeing, even today and yesterday, them suggesting or threatening that there might be export bans on the coronavirus vaccines produced in the EU. And so obviously that's a very concerning sign of vaccine nationalism.
Here in Brussels, officials say humanitarian vaccine donations will be exempt from tougher export controls. They promise help will come soon.
To say that the EU is not doing anything, I think is really not correct. We are actually in discussion both with the member states, but also with the pharmaceutical companies in order precisely to help this advance.
The EU was quick to call for global cooperation against the pandemic, but so far it's been too slow to live up to promises of global solidarity.